emerged from the dusk-shrouded alley like a phantom, her silhouette inked against the flickering sodium lamps that lined Hamilton Street, the very thoroughfare she had vanished from years ago. No one in the throng flowing for the late summer promenade dared to believe their eyes at first. She was draped in a long, charcoal coat that trailed behind her like mist, the collar turned up against a breeze that carried the echoes of old betrayals. Beneath the hood, her face was both the same and unrecognizably changed. Fine lines sculpted by grief and rage had carved hollows beneath her high cheekbones, and her eyes burned with a crimson pain that no living soul should ever wear. Word of her demise had spread through the city like a solemn hymn. Evelyn Carter, presumed dead after the fire that consumed the Westfield warehouse 5 years ago, her name etched in every obituary, her memory enshrined in candlelit vigils. Bill Hamilton had stood at the front of each one, head bowed, hands folded, sobbing for the loss of his oldest friend he swore he would protect. Yet here she was, stepping from the shadows to unleash a vengeance as merciless and consuming as the blaze that had claimed her. From the moment she returned, old alliances trembled on fragile pillars of trust. Evelyn first slipped into the abandoned printing press on Alder Street, the place where she and Bill had first charted their grand plans to revolutionize the city's underground network of safe havens. Cobwebs draped the machinery, and the air tasted of rust and faded hope. She traced a gloved hand along the cold iron gears, resurrecting every memory of promises made and broken, of ambitions thwarted by Bill's ambitions of his own. In that lonely edifice, she discovered the hidden ledger Bill had left behind. A record of transactions that exposed not only the names of allies and benefactors, but also the clandestine deals with the very syndicate that had orchestrated the warehouse blaze. The revelation hit her like a fresh wound. Bill had betrayed her and countless others to secure his climb to power, selling their safety for his salvation. Each entry in the ledger was a nail in the coffin of her trust, and she vowed then be the flicker of her flashlight and the echo of dripping water that she would exact a reckoning. With the ledger clenched in her hand, Evelyn stalked the length of Hamilton Street, eyes flickering from storefront to alleyway, as if the very walls whispered her return. She orchestrated her first strike at the Hamilton Family Gala, an annual display of wealth and influence that drew the city's most powerful figures into one gilded ballroom. Bill, clad in a tailored tuxedo beneath crystal chandeliers, laughed alongside his wife and daughter as a string quartet played in the corner. Evelyn slipped in, unannounced and unrecognized, a ghost among the living. Her first confession came in the form of a projection across the grand screen behind the days, videos of secret meetings, images of Bill exchanging envelopes with known mob lieutenants. Photographs of the charred remains of crates that had once housed more than just flammable material papers marked with her signature, evidence of her trust that he had burned for his own gain. The music screeched to a halt as glasses shattered, and the room convulsed in chaos. Bill's laughter died on his lips, replaced by a choke of disbelief. Guests backed away, their horrified murmurs rising like a wave. Evelyn watched from the back, emotionless, as Bill's carefully constructed facade cracked. She let the cameras capture every flicker of his face shock, denial, then a cold fury. She wasted no time in delivering the second blow. The following dawn, the city awoke to the front page headline scrawled across every circulation, "Bill Hamilton Archett of betrayal," underneath. Anonymous sources revealed the grim details, how Bill had knowingly sold out the safe houses, trading human lives to appease the syndicate's demands. How he had framed Evelyn for embezzlement when she threatened to expose him, and how he had orchestrated the fire that everyone believed had claimed her life. This exposed sent tremors through the city's institutions. Polixishik severed ties, law enforcement opened investigations, and old friends recoiled in disgust. Bill's empire began to unravel at its seams. He was stripped of his honors, his annual gala canceled in disgrace, and his family retreated behind locked doors, their names erased from every social registry. Yet Evelyn knew that public humiliation was only the prelude to his suffering. The real reckoning would come when he confronted her face to face. She arranged their meeting at the warehouse site where she had died, now little more than a pile of blackened timbers and ash-strewn rubble. Bill arrived alone, shadows under his eyes revealing sleepless nights of panic and paranoia. He found her standing amid the wreckage, the old bricks at her feet, and for a moment the world held its breath. "Why?" he whispered, voice ragged, as though the very sound carried the weight of every sin he had buried. Evelyn stepped forward, her coat swirling around her ankles, and tossed the ledger onto the ash. Pages fluttered, sentinel ghosts of their past, and she stared at him with those merciless eyes. "Because you killed me," she said simply, as though stating a fact no one could deny. "Because you destroyed everything we built. Because you used my death to ascend and left me to burn. This," she gestured to the crumbling ruins, "is where our pact died. And now you will die too, under the weight of your own treachery." Bill's knees buckled as he sank to the ashen ground, the enormity of his betrayal finally crashing down. Evelyn turned away, her silhouette retreating into the gathering gray, leaving him to the ruin of his own making. But her vengeance extended far beyond Bill's personal ruin. With each secret she released, the city's gates held invisible barriers between past and present beyond open and unleashed calamity. Allies she had once trusted found their darkest deeds laid bare. Innocents who had sheltered her felt the sting of guilt as skeletons tumbled from every closet. The syndicate that had fanned the flames of the Westfield fire sensed weakness in Bill's downfall and mobilized, seizing the power vacuum with merciless efficiency. Bombings rocked the waterfront, assassins picked off former lieutenants in broad daylight, and the city's underbelly churned in a frenzy of violence. Mistrust became the currency of survival. Neighbors eyed one another with suspicion. Law enforcement splintered into factions racing to claim authority. And the once solid bonds of community frayed into chaotic shards. Evelyn watched from the shadows, her revenge complete yet hollow, for in toppling Bill she had opened Pandora's gates. And the city herself writhed under the onslaught of truths too terrible to contain. As the chaos crescendoed, Bill's name became a whispered curse. He fled into exile, a fugitive hunted by both the law and the syndicate's enforcers. Haunted by the knowledge that Evelyn's final act of revelation was yet to come, the truth about his own complicity in her death. She had discovered hidden surveillance footage, unedited and damning, showing him, mask alight with triumph, pouring accelerant onto the crates as she screamed in protest. That footage she held as her last cruel gift, ultimate proof of his responsibility for her demise. When she released it, the city would see the full horror of his deeds and he would be stripped of any lingering shred of humanity. And yet, as Evelyn prepared to drop the final bombshell, tears she did not expect sprang to her eyes. She realized that in feeding vengeance she had become as destructive as the blaze that had once claimed her. The ledger, once a tool of justice, now lay open at her feet like a confession of her own endless rage. She stared down at the typed lines, at the ledger's immaculate record of sins, and wondered if redemption ever lay within the pages of history or only in the ashes left behind. In the final act, Evelyn stood upon the rooftop of City Hall. As the sun dipped beyond the skyline, the wind carrying fragments of smoke from distant fires. She held the burned remains of the ledger in her hands, its edges curled like the wings of a dying bird. Below her, the city writhed in turmoil, gates between past and present torn asunder, and she understood that revenge, once unleashed, cannot be contained. With a soft exhale, she let the charred pages slip from her fingers, drifting into the desk like black snow. As they scattered into the fading light, Evelyn Carteron's presumed dead, now the architect of this new era of reckoning, turned away from the chaos she had wrought, stepping into the night. Unsure whether she sought atonement or simply a new beginning beyond the gates of her past, Bill Hamilton lay in the stark white sterility of the intensive care unit, tubes snaking from his arms and throat, monitors ticking off each fragile heartbeat in measured beeps. The corridors outside had fallen into a conspiratorial hush. Nurses spoke in muted tones, doctors moved like shadows beneath fluorescent lights, and the very air seemed heavy with the echo of gunshots that had shattered the uneasy calm of his forced sanctuary. He had been rushed here only hours before. The bullet's trajectory a cruel echo of Evelyn Carter's vengeance. Whether her hand had pulled the trigger or some darker force had seized the opportunity remained uncertain. One moment he'd been propped on crisp hospital sheets, bandages wrapped around the entry wound near his shoulder, eyes closed in feverish delirium. The next, A masked assailant had slipped through security protocols, glided to his bedside, and pressed the cold barrel of a handgun against the side of his head. The shot rang out with terrible finality, and Bill had crumpled back onto the bed as alarms flared and frantic hands swarmed. Outside the sliding glass doors, word spread faster than the morning's headlines. Reporters clustered like vultures at the entrance, their lenses clicking, microphones thrust beneath the noses of shaken orderlies who could offer only terse denials. Hospital staff barricaded corridors with carts and privacy screens. But the fury of the rumor mill was unstoppable. Bill Hamilton, already a pariah stripped of honors and haunted by Evelyn's revelations, now the target of an assassination in the one place he'd sought refuge. The alderman, the police chief, even the mayor rushed to issue statements condemning of violence, vows to catch the perpetrator, assurances that justice would prevail. But in the hush of that antiseptic ward, none of it mattered to the man whose breath hung by a thread. His pulse faltered as a fresh wave of pain coursed through him, and he awoke to the taste of antiseptic on his tongue, the ceiling lights shimmering like cruel snowflakes. His first groping thought was of Evelyn and the ledger, of the secrets she had unraveled and the chaos she had unleashed. He realized, with a cold lurch in his gut, that even in his supposed weakness he was still a pawn in a game whose rules he had never fully understood. Somewhere beyond the ward, doors bang open and shut as investigators moved like predators, canvassing witnesses, collecting shell casings, reviewing security footage. The gunman's face, caught in grainy surveillance at the far end of the corridor, stayed blurred by a glitch in the camera feed and oversight that smelled less of incompetence and more of collusion. Bill's mind, muddled by painkillers, spun with dark possibilities. Had Evelyn hired a hitman to finish what the fire had begun? Or was the syndicate, enraged by her exposure of their machinations, now turning on both of them to reclaim power? He tried to shift, agony flaring through his chest, and the nurse by his side snapped to attention. "Stay still, Mr. Hamilton," she warned, voice tinged with urgency. He nodded, vision dimming, and closed his eyes against the whirl of fear that gripped him. In that moment between consciousness and blackness, he vowed that if he survived, he would unearth the truth behind the bullet and the betrayal. And no matter the cost, he would confront Evelyn once more. Because in the corridors of power and vengeance, the final chapters were never written by the wounded alone.